What's up, YouTube? I am the Planet Rocks, and today we're going to be delving back into Requiescence. Last time we met the mysterious monk, and so now this playthrough, I think I'm going to try to reach the first character, sorry about that, the first character we come across, who I believe is named Damian. So yeah, let's get started. He disappears entirely. As I stare at the spot where he stood, I'm left with a strangely empty feeling. Despite my confusion, his voice was the first one I've heard in a long time other than my own. I glanced down to my sword, still clutched tightly in my fist.
I hope I'm not going crazy.
I slide my sword back into its sheath and smooth my bangs from my forehead with a soft sigh. I should have expected this when I followed in my Uncle Gideon's footsteps. He'd always tell me stories of the odd, fantastical things that happened to him when he was on his adventures. But I guess I never thought they would happen to me. This monk. Can I trust him? His presence makes me feel uneasy, but at the same time, I don't think he's an enemy. But if there are other creatures like him that can turn ethereal at will, I'll have to be on my guard. For some reason, I feel a slight reluctant desire to see the monk again, if only to force him to answer all the questions I have. I doubt he'll help me, but I have to try. What he said about sensing something inside of me, I wondered what he could have meant. I definitely haven't been anywhere near the cathedral before, so he probably just mistook me for someone else. But I can't shake this uneasy feeling of apprehension that's forming in my stomach. The sensation of the monk's frigid fingers still lingers on my skin, reminding me of those words he said. All of it. I have no idea what he could be talking about. But I guess the only way to learn more is to just press forward. Maybe I'll come across something that'll give me a hint, so that I'm not stuck in this state of cluelessness. Taking a deep breath, I steel myself and head over towards the crack in the wall. The glow of the mystical door greets me as I walk over towards it. It's already really warm in here, but it feels like even more heat is coming from behind the door. I place a hand on one half of the circular rune atop the stone. Tentatively, I push it forward. The stone scrapes gratingly against the floor as it moves, but I'm careful not to open the gap too widely. After all, there might be some sort of horrible creature trapped inside. I cautiously peek into the opening. Only darkness. A musty scent abruptly rushes up into my nostrils. It's like I just opened the door to an old tomb. Ugh. I hastily rub at my nose with a hand to alleviate the tingling sensation. As I do so, I squint into the darkness to try and see if there's anything past the door. I think I can see stairs. A spiral staircase leading downwards, but incredibly narrow. It's only about 5 feet wide. Good thing I don't have a fear of tight spaces. Well, here goes nothing. Before I head down, I throw one last glance back at the altar. For some reason, I feel like I'm being watched. It's not like there are any real hiding spots in this room, but it just seems too quiet. Bah. I think I'm just paranoid after that monk suddenly appeared in front of me. I turn back to squeeze through the gap in the door, sucking in my breath so I can fit past. Then I take one light step onto the first stair, just to make sure it doesn't crumble beneath my feet. It seems firm. Bracing myself, I start heading downwards into the depths of wherever these stairs might take me. Dark. There's no light at all, save for the distant flickering of torches. Cobwebs get caught in my mouth as soon as I try to yawn. I stumble down a stair or two, but quickly get my balance. For some reason, there's an odd feeling of weight on me, as if my pack had suddenly gotten much heavier.
This place is horrible.
The heat and smell of old, dusty stone are the only things I have in this pitch blackness. I think I'm going to turn up the volume. Yeah, I should definitely turn up the volume. I'm so far from the rest of humanity that no one would ever find my corpse if I died here. No funeral, no grave, no remembrance. Just darkness. I shudder at the morbid picture. Taking a deep breath, I shake my head to get rid of these dark thoughts. I'm not here for myself. I'm here to fulfill a task that Gideon couldn't. I have to remember that I'm persevering for him, not for my own glory. And for that reason, I can't fail. I get into the rhythm of taking the stairs 2 at a time, half jogging downwards. The feeling of weight has left me, and now I'm making fast progress downwards. I've been descending for a while, but I think the staircase is starting to slope more steeply. I slow my pace so I don't tumble head over heels and smash my head open. I step down a bit further, treading more carefully, and then the staircase abruptly ends. Before my face is a large, heavy set of doors, similar to those at the entrance of the cathedral. In fact, the handle looks so familiar that for a moment I wonder if I've somehow looped around to the beginning. But there's something different about these doors. What is it that looks so strange about them? They seem very old, as if they were standing here since the dawn of time, and like with many old structures, part of the stone have fallen away and crumbled, leaving chips and gaps in the door. But, oddly enough, the holes are filled with some sort of gleaming opaque film, like many spiderwebs twisted into a single shimmering mass. Wait a second. I've seen these translucent patches before. The monk. He had the same odd shimmering holes in his skin, filled with this strange white film. It's uncanny how similar they look. But how could they possibly be related? The monk and this door. Feeling compelled by my curiosity, I tentatively reach out a hand to one of the white spots. An abrupt numbness shoots through me. A pulsing, tingling sensation that spreads from my fingertips throughout my body. It feels like someone just threw a handful of needles into my spine. But as soon as I yank back my hand, the overpowering sensation fades. What the hell? I roughly shake myself off to try and get rid of the horrible feeling. What was that? I've never felt anything like it before. I can strongly detect magic from the door, but it's not normal magic. It leaves lasting tingles down my spine, and I can feel all the hair on my body standing on end. There's something very wrong with this door. I really don't want to go through it, but I don't think there's another way forward. Feeling cornered, I take a cautious step back and hear a soft, crunching sound at my feet. A note. Fancy silver twine is wrapped around it, tied in a perfect knot. It seems so out of place that it immediately sparks my suspicion. I cautiously reach down to grab the note, but it seems to be a perfectly ordinary piece of parchment. I untie the twine from the note and smooth it out. It's written in a very dignified hand, with elegant swirls everywhere. I wonder who could have left a note in such a strange place. Let's see what it says. Whatever poor sod's reading this, get out. I mean it. There's nothing but death beyond this door. Death and suffering and more death and things like that. Turn back while you can. I'll probably die while writing this note. If I hadn't brought ink with me, I'd use my own blood to write it. Good thing I do have ink, though. Less messy. Really, though, turn back. Don't suffer the same fate I have. There's a little scribble at the bottom where it looks like someone wrote their signature and then hastily covered it over. I have to reread the note a few times to process it fully. Is
this a joke?
Scowling, I rip the note in half and toss it to one side. Really, though, what kind of idiot would write something so ridiculous? As if a dying person would make quips about blood and ink. So, just in case you're wondering, that idiot, we are actually going to meet them in a little while. Besides, who brings writing materials with them in a place like this? Some sort of scholar? They'd made it sound like they were fatally wounded, but I see no blood anywhere. And definitely no bodies. Whatever. I tried to dismiss the note from my mind, but now an unsettling thought weighs me down. Could it be that someone recently came through here? Considering how my path so far has been more or less free of trials, it seems possible. But that raises a new set of questions. Who came before me? Are they still alive? Have they already left? Or are they still here? I thought I was all alone in this place, but this note, it doesn't seem that old. I guess it's possible that it's just an illusion or something, or perhaps time works differently here. But I guess there's nothing I can do about it right now except to keep moving forward. As much as I hate to touch this door again, gritting my teeth, I reach out for the handle and throw all my weight into shoving the door open. The tingling sensation briefly jolts through my body, but I quickly step away from the door and the feeling subsides. It was incredibly dark inside the stairwell, so even the dim light of this room is a welcome sight. I have to blink a little to readjust. I step idly past the threshold, trying to make out shapes in the flickering light of torches on the walls. And then my foot hits something. Something that moves. A hiss comes from beneath my feet. My whole body goes rigid. Slithering on the floor with its tail right by my boots is a massive snake. Its head is several feet away from me. The snake rises up to an intimidating height, staring at me with slitted yellow eyes. Its tongue flickers out like a flash of flame. I shoot a hand down to grasp for my sword. My fingers scrape the pommel. No time to think. I have to... It lunges at me. Shit. I leap to the side just before it strikes. My fingers finally grasp the pommel of my sword and I drag it out of the sheath. The sound echoes hollowly throughout the room. I grasp the blade with both hands, raising it up and gritting my teeth. The snake's body twists eerily as its head moves closer. I point the tip of the ornamental blade at the beast with one hand and raise my other hand, murmuring under my breath. Concentrate. A crackling sound splits through the air. Blue sparks shine from the hilt of my sword, curling around the blade. They channel towards the tip, burning brighter and brighter each moment. The snake's eyes are fixed on me. It darts forward, its fangs glisten. The sparks leap and meet the snake in midair. A harsh noise rings out. The sound of something sharp piercing through scales and hide. The blue sparks turn into icy daggers, impaling the snake on both sides. The weight of the ice drags it to the floor before it reaches me. I take a step backwards as it writhes by my feet. The sound of its horrible hissing makes me cringe. But soon, the snake goes silent and still. I stand still, ready for it to suddenly start squirming again. The cold magic from my sword leave a chill in the air, even after the light fades. Tentatively, I prod the serpent with my boot. The life seems to have left its slitted golden eyes. Those fangs. That thing could have probably eaten me in one bite. When I take a closer look at it, I can see its scales are an odd shade of purple, and they gleam almost like gems. And more than that, white patches spread over its hide. I choose to take it as a coincidence, but these patches are becoming a little too strange just to ignore. Exhaling heavily, I sheathe my sword, rolling my shoulders to relieve the tension in them. I haven't fought anything in a long time. I trained a lot with Gideon whenever he was home in between adventures. He helped me harness my magic and channel it using a blade rather than a staff. A blade, he said, was much more practical than a staff. You can use it for offense if your magic isn't effective. But training isn't anything like a real fight. Something I learned a few months ago when I killed someone for the first time. He'd been trying to rob me in an alley and threatened me with a knife. Without even thinking, I cast a wave of icicles at him, then turned and ran. I didn't see him afterwards, but I don't see how he could have survived the spell. I felt guilty for a few weeks after, but finally I realized the harsh reality. When someone threatens your life, you have to act as fast as you can. I reacted on instinct, and if I hadn't, well, I'd probably be the dead one. But that's all in the past. Getting through the cathedral is all I'm worried about now. Or more accurately, it's all that I can let myself be worried about. If I'm all alone with my muddy thoughts, I'm afraid my sanity might start slipping away. Clearing my clouded mind with a shake of my head, I turn my attention towards examining the room. It's a wide chamber lit by candelabras standing near the walls. Behind a statue in the corner, there's a small set of stairs that lead down into some sort of passage. I can't help but sigh in relief. It's not a dead end. I'm clinging to the hope that I don't run into any dead ends because, well, if I do, I'm as good as dead myself. I exhale a deep breath, calming my still racing heartbeat. Briefly, I glance back over at the snake just to make sure it hasn't moved again or anything. Its amethyst hide sticks out against the cold gray floor. The glow from the magical icy crystals sticking out of its scales makes them gleam brightly. It's morbidly beautiful in a way. It's also very dead. Well, no point in lingering. I really don't want to stick around to see if there are more snakes like that one. I step around the statue and hurry towards the stairs. The hall that I enter is a huge one, with a towering arched ceiling and massive statues looming on the walls. The ethereal light from the wall-mounted torches flickers onto the statues, making them look like they're being consumed by a pale fire. It feels so dark and empty in here that it makes my skin crawl. I can sense a lingering magic in the air, but it's oddly stale, like something that evaporated and left only a shadow behind. I also can't help but feel that those statues are watching me with their cold marble eyes. Something about this place feels so twisted, as if everything here is a mockery of itself. Taking a deep breath, I start to move forward. An occasional rush of air brushes across my face as I walk. Could this massive hall lead into a cave, or the outside? How else could there possibly be a draft? The unnerving silence reminds me of something I've been trying to put out of my mind. The other person who could be here. Did they pass through this corridor too? That might explain why it feels so unnaturally empty. My muddied thoughts only clear when I hear a crunch under my foot. Another piece of parchment, maybe? I squint in the darkness to try and make out the shape. A bone. Attached to it is something large and leathery. A wing? Swallowing my discomfort, I glance around to see if I can glimpse any other parts of whatever this is. Sure enough, there are several dismembered creatures cluttering the dark hallway. Small corpses only a little over the size of a goblin. They look similar to goblins, and yet they're not exactly the same. They're shaped like sculpted monstrosities, winged, horned, and hooved. They seem to have leathery skin instead of a stone hide, and I can see long gashes that sliced open their sides. Blood spills out gruesomely, pooling on the floor. So it's true. Someone came through this place recently. And whoever, or whatever it was, they clearly killed these things with ease. The blood, it looks fresh, maybe only a few hours old. That means the one who entered before me has to still be here, surely. They've already cleared the path that I've been traveling, except for that snake. Maybe it was sleeping when they passed through. I suppose I'm glad whoever it has already taken care of these creatures, but I don't like the idea of someone else doing all the dirty work. Sidestepping the monstrous corpses, I carefully start moving forward again, staying alert for any sign of movement. If this explorer is after treasure, like what the monk said, chances are they won't be friendly. I'll fight them if I have to, but I hope they'll listen to what I have to say. But I won't get my hopes up. I've only been walking for a few minutes when a fresh, stronger gust of air flies into me, ruffling my clothes and hair. Soon I can spot an opening not far ahead. I speed up my pace. Finally, I step out from the hewn stone onto the rocky cave floor. It's an abrupt transition, and it feels bizarre. The maw of the cave opens up into a rocky, dark, frozen vista, and the way ahead is paved by a rickety wooden bridge. The bridge twists and turns around a corner, dangerously thin, but it's the only way forward. One lone torch stands by the entry to the bridge, attached to a large rock that sticks up from the ground. I move up to the torch and ease it out of its bracket. It's fairly light, and its warmth is a contrast to the cold cave. But since my homeland is in the mountains, I'm so used to the cold that the cave reminds me of home more than anything. It sort of feels nice. The pale flame flickers from side to side as I start to quietly make my way down the stone path. It's all very surreal. Just a minute ago I was in a grand hallway, and now I'm not even sure I'm in a cathedral any longer. Is there any sort of significance to this strange layout? Could it be a result of some kind of magic? Or is it something as simple as a passageway into the mountains? I'd be willing to bet that the monk knows the answer to all of these questions, but I doubt he'll feel like answering them. I have a feeling that he enjoyed seeing me so confused. I just hope I don't run into any more spirits like him. One was more than enough. As I approach the corner, I can hear a new faint sound. It's not the soft drip of the water from the ceiling, and not the wind howling. It's distant and hard to make out fully, but it sounds like fighting. I freeze in place, tilting my head to try and make out the noise better. It's definitely fighting. I can hear scuffling and shouting, echoing in the distance. They're not right around the corner, but they can't be farther than a minute or two ahead. For a moment, I can't help but wonder if I should really go further. I know I can't turn back, but I could always wait for the fighting to die down, then try to sneak past, but I want to... No, I have to see who this person I've been following is. I can't let myself hesitate any longer. I break into a full-on sprint, clutching my torch tightly. I'm not worried about stealthiness anymore. My boots practically glide along the icy stone, faster and faster. Somehow I manage to keep my balance, letting my weight carry me forward. My scabbard clinks at my hip with each step, but before long, it's drowned out by the noises that are growing closer. I can hear my own heavy breaths and the dull thud of my footfalls. My nerves are all tingling, burning. My lungs feel like they're full of ice. Every time I take another step, I don't know if I'll be able to take the next. But I do, and that next step comes faster still. And yet every time I round a corner, there's no sign of life. Just more of the bridge coiling on and out of sight. I race around another corner. They're close now, so close. I slow to a jog to catch my breath, heaving in gasps of air. My stomach burns, my legs ache, but all of that doesn't matter. And somehow, my torch hasn't burned out. In fact, it seems to be burning even brighter still. Once I recover my composure, I draw out my sword, keeping the torch in my other hand. I step out from behind the corner, and the first thing I see, a tall man with 2 rapiers lashes out. A group of huge savage hounds, almost the size of bears. Drool leaks from their jowls, fangs glistening in the light of my torch. The man plunges his blade into one of the hounds, tossing its body aside. 2 more charge at him, but he easily dodges, swiping at their necks. They fall to the side, leaving only 1 hound left. When the final beast charges at him, his blade drives through its skull. A moment later, he shoves it to the ground and pulls his swords out of its head with a disgusted grunt. It goes silent soon after, like the rest of the canine corpses scattered around this small clearing. There have to be at least 6 dead hounds, each lying in a pool of splattered blood and gore. Struck speechless from his beautiful fighting, I take a step back. But the man turns to look at me, and I reflexively tense. His pale complexion gleams with sweat, and his clothes are splattered with blood, all of it fresh. He has a head of long blonde hair, and a band of cloth over his forehead keeps it out of his eyes. His eyebrows, dark in comparison to his hair, furrow deeply as he stares at me with 2 piercing gray eyes. I can already tell he's someone who lives south of my homeland. His fine outfit, his regal posture, he's certainly a noble of some sort. We stare at each other for a few moments. I can't think of what to say. But then...
How in the sky's name did you get past Bella?
His voice isn't exactly deep, but it's sort of resonant, like a bard's. He also has a posh accent that confirms my suspicions about his heritage.
Bella?
I recover my wits quickly, trying to think of what the man could possibly be referring to. But I come up with a blank.
I didn't encounter anyone on the way here, sir. Just...
The snake, you fool.
He interrupts me in an impatient cry.
How did you get past her? Oh, I swear to the heavens, if you killed her...
I cringe. So that snake belonged to someone.
She attacked me, sir. I didn't know what to...
Shit on a stick. He curses to the air and gives a savage kick to the ground beside him, knocking up a flurry of dust and pebbles.
Fate! Such a savage mistress you are to me.
He moans towards the cave ceiling and wipes a splotch of blood off his cheek with his wrist. I'm sorry, sir, really. Very sorry. A tense moment of silence passes. I'm just fooling around. I actually just crept past that thing when it was sleeping. I felt sorry for it, you know. Didn't want to disturb its repose. Clearly, this man is crazy. His expression quickly goes serious again, and he affixes me with a suspicious glare.
Why are you here? Go back the way you came.
Is he serious? I clutch my sword tight enough for my knuckles to turn white.
I've traveled for a year to get here. I am not going back.
The nearest village, the only place I can get food and water, is several weeks' worth of travel on horseback. And my horse bolted the moment I crossed the threshold of this damn place. Gritting my teeth, I train a glare on the man, ready to spring into action at the slightest movement.
If you don't plan on letting me past, then I'll have to fight you to get through.
The man stares at me, his eyes going wide with surprise. Shit, I might have sounded a little harsh. It's been a while since I've talked to another human. But really, he had the arrogance to tell me to go back to where I came from. After a moment, though, his mouth slowly curls in a light smirk. Really, food and water are your only concerns? Pah. He sheathes his blades in the 2 scabbards strapped to his back. I guess he doesn't deem me a threat any longer. Placing his hands on his hips, he tilts his head at me, raising an eyebrow.
How long have you been down here?
It should be an easy question to answer, but I find myself struggling. How long has it been, exactly? A few hours? Maybe longer still, or not even that long. The man seems to expect my hesitation, because he gives a firm nod. You don't know, do you? No.
Well, that's because time works strangely in this place. If it works at all.
I've been here for what feels like weeks, but I don't need to eat, and I have no need for drink. Well, that's not entirely true. I could use a strong shot of brandy. He clears his throat awkwardly after noticing my blank stare. Anyway, my point is this place distorts time in some strange fashion. You don't have to worry about normal things like food and water. Lucky too, because I'd have worked up quite an appetite killing all these nasty beasts. He clasps his hands behind his head, wearing a smug look. Then he takes a few steps forward, leisurely strolling towards me. When he stands a few feet away, I can see that he's quite a bit taller than I am. But despite his height and leanly muscled build, I don't really feel threatened. Because as deadly as this man apparently is, he just seems so colorful.
So, my angry little friend, starvation is the least of your worries.
Instead, you should be thinking about what to do if one of these buggers decides he wants you for a meal. He nods his head in the direction of the nearest dead hound.
There are more creatures like these in the cathedral?
I question him warily, briefly glancing at the beast he motioned to. It's a really massive creature. You haven't... At first he seems puzzled, and then his sharp features take on a bitter look.
Well, you see, while all you had to do was waltz down the corridors, skipping as you went, I had to murder things.
He gazes accusingly down at me, his voice rising as he continues.
Gargoyles, demons, angry spirits, creatures I have no idea how to describe. And now, bloody dogs. Let me repeat that for you. I was just swarmed by dogs. Meanwhile, you stood by and watched the show like a nobleman at a cockfight. Wasn't that generous of you?
He's been pacing back and forth in a small line while he speaks, gesturing theatrically with one hand into the air. Then he stops suddenly in front of me, wearing a potent glare.
Well, don't you have something to say for yourself?
Ah, here we go, our first choice. I think I'm going to apologize, because I am actually going to go down Damian's route. I do admittedly feel a little guilty. It's been surprisingly easy going through the cathedral so far, and it makes me uncomfortable to realize this man did all the work for me.
I'm sorry, sir. But really, it could have easily been the other way around if I'd arrived first and you came after.
But it wasn't the other way around. He interrupts me again, clicking his tongue disapprovingly. Possibilities in the past are not the present. I watch him skeptically while he scolds me. But soon he goes quiet and lets out a defeated sigh.
Well, if you insist on being a nuisance rather than going back and getting out of my hair, then quick babbling and move forward.
We're wasting time here after all.
But you said time doesn't work the same.
Move. He takes a long step forward towards me and places his hands on my shoulders, giving me a rough push forward. I stumble through the sea of hound corpses, doing my best not to slip in any patches of slimy blood. Will I be able to last longer than a few hours with this man before the last traces of my sanity leave me? I doubt it. I pause, turning around to stop the strange man before he can go any further.
At least tell me your name.
He stops in order to give me a dry look.
Maybe you should have introduced yourself earlier then, rather than gulping like a savage.
He brushes past me after his retort, continuing down the path as he speaks. I follow after him reluctantly, feeling more than a little put off. He must have been the one who wrote the note I found earlier. It matches his odd demeanor perfectly.
I am Damian. Sir Damian. Well, sort of.
Sort of. You see, I served as a knight ever since I came of age. But apparently on one occasion I did something disgraceful towards the court. There was some sort of fuss about relieving me of my title. A bunch of nonsense, if you ask me. Somehow, I'm not as surprised at all to hear this.
I see. Well, I'm Kymil. Just Kymil.
I interject my own name when I have a chance after he pauses for breath. I have to jog a little to keep up with his long strides forward, which don't slow down even as the path starts to narrow. Alrighty guys, I think I'm going to call it a day right there. We finished up by meeting Damian, who is the one we are going to focus on during this playthrough. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I am the Planet Rocks, and be sure to join me next week when I get another video uploaded. Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and like this video. Once again, I'm the Planet Rocks, and thank you for joining me.